our unwelcome visitor. Inspired by a Singapore supernatural account. Some houses have history, some houses have memories, and some have residents who were never listed on the property deed. When I was 19, I worked as a relief teacher at a secondary school. Most weekends, I stayed with my parents in our old family home. It was a beautiful colonial-style house built decades before I was born. Large windows, wooden floors, a long hallway that always seemed darker than the rest of the house. Everyone in the family believed there was something living there. Not because we had seen it, but because we could feel it. The strange thing was, it had never hurt anyone. Lights occasionally switched on by themselves. Footsteps wandered through the hallway after midnight. Doors sometimes opened quietly without anyone touching them. But nothing more. So over the years, we simply learned to live with it. It became our uninvited housemate. My mother's older sister, Aunt Margaret, visited almost every weekend. She loved our family. She loved our cooking. She loved staying overnight. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't afraid of the strange things happening in the house. Whenever someone mentioned ghosts, she laughed. If spirits wanted to hurt us, she'd say, they would have done it already. She believed whatever was inside our house was harmless. Friendly even. Looking back, I wonder if that confidence caught something's attention. One Friday evening, Aunt Margaret came over after work. The next morning was my school's annual family carnival. I was responsible for organizing several activity booths. There was still so much preparation to do. Decorations, attendance sheets, lucky draw prizes, games. My cousins came over to help. The dining table became our workspace. Paper, glue, scissors, markers, coffee cups. By the time we finished, it was nearly 2 in the morning. Everyone was exhausted. We switched off the lights, locked the doors, and finally went to bed. I don't know what time it was. Perhaps 3. Perhaps 4. I woke because of a strange sound. At first I thought someone was coughing. Then I realized it sounded more like choking. A horrible, desperate, gasping sound. Someone fighting for air.
I sat upright.
The sound came from the guest room, where Aunt Margaret was sleeping. I rushed down the hallway. The door was half open. What I saw still haunts me. Aunt Margaret was sitting upright in bed. Her eyes were wide open. Her face had turned dark red. She clawed desperately at her throat. Not because she was choking on food, because she was trying to remove something. She was pulling at empty air, as though invisible hands were wrapped around her neck. She couldn't speak. She couldn't scream. Only that horrible, gasping sound. I ran toward her. The moment I crossed the doorway, the room became ice cold. I grabbed Aunt Margaret's shoulders. Something pushed me backwards. Hard. I hit the wardrobe. The room shook. Not violently. Just enough for the hangers inside the cupboard to rattle. My parents came running. My father switched on every light. Nothing. There was no one in the room. Yet Aunt Margaret continued fighting with someone we couldn't see. My mother shouted prayers. My father tried pulling Aunt Margaret away from whatever held her. Suddenly, she flew backwards onto the mattress. As if released, she inhaled deeply, then burst into tears. I hope you love the story that we brought you. This story was created by Pearl. Please remember to subscribe and like so that we can continue to create more stories. Morning came. Nobody slept again. As sunlight entered the room, my mother noticed something. Dark bruises. 5 distinct finger marks around Aunt Margaret's neck. Perfectly spaced. Too large to belong to any woman. Too narrow to belong to my father. The doctor later examined her. No sign of allergic reaction. No sign of strangulation by rope. He looked puzzled. It almost looks like he stopped himself. He never finished the sentence. After that night, Aunt Margaret refused to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of the same hallway, the hallway in our house, except it was much longer, much darker. At the end stood a tall figure, not moving, just watching. Every night came closer, one step, then another, until eventually it stood outside her bedroom door, waiting. A week later, my youngest cousin spoke quietly during dinner. Who was the little boy? Everyone looked confused. What little boy? The one standing beside Auntie's bed. Silence. He smiled at me. My cousin described him. Barefoot. Old-fashioned white shirt. Short black hair. Around 8 years old. Nobody else had seen him. Children sometimes notice things adults cannot. An elderly neighbor visited after hearing what happened. When she learned which bedroom Aunt Margaret had used, her face turned pale. She asked, "Did she sleep near the east window?" "Yes," the old woman sighed. "Years before our family bought the house, another family had lived there. Their youngest son had died from illness. The parents never accepted his death. Every night, they claimed they heard him calling from the bedroom. Eventually, they moved away. The room remained empty for years. Curiosity overcame fear. My father searched old newspaper archives. He found the article. A child, 9 years old, passed away peacefully in that house. His mother reportedly became obsessed with speaking to him. Neighbors often heard arguments inside the empty bedroom. They claimed she was arguing with someone who wasn't alive. 1 month passed peacefully. We believed everything had ended. Then, Aunt Margaret came to visit again. She insisted she wasn't afraid anymore. That evening was perfectly normal. Dinner.
Der.
Conversation. Laughter. 17 a.m. Every bedroom door upstairs opened simultaneously. Slowly. Without a sound. Chapter 13, The Hallway. Everyone gathered outside. The hallway lights flickered. At the far end stood a small silhouette. A child. Perfectly still. No face. Only darkness. He lifted one arm. Pointing. Not toward us. Toward Aunt Margaret. She whispered, "He isn't looking at me. He wants someone behind me." No one dared turn around. The next day my parents invited a respected spiritual elder. He walked through every room. Prayed softly. He stopped inside the guest bedroom. Closed his eyes. Then quietly said, "There are 2. The family exchanged nervous looks. The child never meant harm. He pointed toward the hallway. But something else followed someone into this house. Everyone looked toward Aunt Margaret. She suddenly remembered something. The evening before she came to visit, she had attended a funeral. After everyone left, she had lingered alone. Without realizing it, something lonely had followed her home. The The cleansing ceremony lasted until sunset. Prayers echoed through every room. Windows were opened. Fresh flowers placed throughout the house. Incense burned continuously. Near the end, a sudden wind swept through the hallway. Every candle went out at once. Then, the house became quiet. A peaceful kind of quiet. Not the uneasy silence we had grown used to. The heaviness disappeared. Even the air felt different. For the first time in years, our home felt truly empty. Aunt Margaret never experienced another attack. She lived a long, happy life. But she kept one habit until the day she passed away. Whenever she entered any house, she would pause at the doorway, smile politely, and softly say, "I'm only visiting." Then, before leaving, she would turn back toward the house, bow her head, and whisper, "I'm going home now." When I finally asked why, she smiled. "You never know who might be listening, because sometimes the most dangerous spirits aren't the ones already inside the house. They're the ones that decide to come home with you." The end. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was created by Pearl with Drama Spark. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in love. Here we're honored to bring you stories of hope, love, and the resilience of the human spirit.